Good evening. Excuse me. It is 7 o'clock, Tuesday, September the 18th. This is our last council meeting before the municipal elections. Kind of like school's out. Council, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gartner. Comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest, please. Seeing none, we do not have any community presentations this evening. We have two delegations. The delegation is listed actually as Lieutenant Colonel Ferguson Mobbs, retiring, representing the 140th Air Cadet Squadron. It will actually be Captain Degar and from the 140 Air Cadets and Captain Lusk from Queen's York Ranger 2799 Cadet Corps. Ladies? No, it's only a quickie thing, and we'll do the other one. You can move into the motion. Right. If you would introduce yourself, please, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Captain Rosie Degar, Commanding Officer of the Royal Canadian Air Cadets, 140 Aurora.
And I'm Captain Sue Lusk, and I'm the Queen's York Rangers Army Cadet Corps Commanding Officer with 2799.
We are here tonight to celebrate two specific units. Air Cadets, Army Cadets in Aurora, youth, for our 30th anniversary celebration and 50th anniversary celebration for the Queen's York Rangers and 140 Air. We are asking for freedom of the city, civic recognition to show the youth involvement of cadets in Aurora for the past 50 and 30 years.
Well, it's a little bit more than 50 actually, but we already have a lot of your input. We often have councillors, Mayor Daw, come to our functions, and we would like to just kind of show the people of Aurora what we do for as part of your town, and kind of do that whole military thing, sword banging on the door kind of thing. So we'd like to do that with a small parade. I know that we would like to do two separate parades as in her 30th anniversary, and the Queen's York Rangers are willing to do ours a little earlier if that works and we can work it into the schedule obviously, so that we can do the freedom of the town, which is an old military custom.
Our anniversary is specifically September 19th, 2019, so we were looking at having a short parade from the park just across from Town Hall over to Town Hall and receive scroll certificate from the mayor on September 21st, which would be the Saturday.
And we would be more than willing to do it a little earlier, as we don't have a specific date and time, but that would work well for everybody, hopefully. And that's all we're asking for.
Thank you very much.
Short and simple.
Captains Lusk and Degar are appearing in support of the motion, which will be on a bit later, and they will not be staying for the whole meeting. Any comments or questions for either Captain Degar or Captain Lusk? Councillor Gartner.
Just a really big thank you for your work and for all these young people coming to the council chamber tonight. And I think I can say on behalf of all of us, we're very proud to have the Queen's York Rangers in Aurora.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor, and thank you again for coming this evening. I think it's exciting that you're celebrating 30 years and 50 years in our town. It's just a pleasure to see all the youth so involved, and just a great, well, the Air Cadets and the Queen's York Rangers, can't be any more proud of your involvement there, and it's just going to help your futures tremendously. So thank you so much, and I'm very much in support of celebrating next year with both organizations, and continue the great work that you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and all the cadets that are out here, and members from the Queen's York Rangers. I wanted to ask, when you said, Captain, that you were going to march in the parade earlier, is it an earlier date or just prior, on the same date, just prior to?
Well, I know that we would like to be, we are separate entities, although we often work very closely together as we all live in the same town, and that's the right thing to do. But they're definitely two different entities, and we would like to choose a different date, but something that works for the council as well.
No,
the town.
that's great, thanks.
Any other speakers, comments? Thank you very much for coming out. We do appreciate it. And the notice of motion, council will note, speaks solely at this point to the 140th Aurora Canadian Air Cadet Squadron. I'll be seeking an amendment to add the QIR Cadet Corps 2799 when we get to that, and that will be later in the evening. And of course, you are most welcome to stay for that, or you could leave, whatever your choice is. But thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for what you do for our town. It is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And council will now move to, there's a delegation in support of Councillor Gartner's motion, and then after we hear that delegation, I'm sorry, all in favor? Apologies, I should know this by now. Contrary, that's carried. And then I'll ask council to bring forward Councillor Gartner's motion at that time. So we have, Alison Halls and Rick Perry. Is Mr. Perry here? Is Mr. Perry with you?
No,
Okay.
he's not here.
If you could introduce yourself and give us your address, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay,
You have
thank
5 minutes.
Yeah, it's Allison Halls, and I live on Bigwin Drive in Aurora, in the Aurora Heights stable neighborhood. I just want to kind of give a summary of things after experiencing this in my involvement is 8 months of talking about stable neighborhoods. I never thought I would spend 8 months about this, learning about the incompatible homes, the Planning Act, things that I really don't know why I need to know as a citizen, since I thought that our taxes paid for staffing everybody else to understand that on our behalf. In any case, I just want to point out a few things. So we've got a real estate agent, I'm sure you're familiar with this paper. Attention builders, renovators, this is a street in transition, very rare opportunity for a 70-foot frontage. This is a home with large frontage, so we're advertising that builders should come in and take these homes out of the area and build who knows what. I still don't understand how after 11 months of 3 ratepayers groups coming in, how we've really made no progress on this. I called today the planning manager for the Halton Hills area. I understand that Rick, one of my colleagues in Aurora Heights neighborhood, sent everybody a link to what they did. They had a few complaints to their mayor about some monster homes coming into their area. The mayor asked for a study to be done. They put in a bylaw to freeze development for all homes pre-1975. And they did that for 2 years. 1 year while they did the study, another year while they implemented the bylaw changes, and everybody's happy. Unfortunately, we can't seem to be able to do that as quickly as they have for a reason that's beyond me, but they are the same size as us, about 60,000 population. So I thought that was interesting. They're a good mirror to us. I don't understand in a town like Aurora, where we've got abundant history, heritage, architecture that reflects all the different eras of this town's existence, why we wouldn't want to be protecting these areas. It begs a question to me. I've read about and witnessed various groups coming into council and asking for money or asking the town to spend money, and they seem to not have any problem in getting everybody to agree on something like that. Yet here we are, 3 ratepayers groups representing a couple thousand homes at least, and we've been here month after month asking for a freeze and the zoning changes, and we can't seem to get that accomplished, which makes me wonder what is motivating council not to support us. So I guess what that means is, since we can't, or we haven't been able to get a freeze on development to get the zoning bylaws changes before the election, that now our only recourse is to use our right to vote and to recommend to those that ask us who we would support, who support us in protecting our stable neighborhoods. So hopefully we'll have a new group who's willing to support us, do the right thing, and protect the integrity and character of these 3 stable neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't run away. Motion to receive, please. Councillor Abel, thank you. Second, Councillor Humphreys. Speakers, please. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much for sharing. I can appreciate your frustration and bringing to light about, was it Halton, you said?
Yeah, there was an email sent to all councillors by our president of our group, Rick Perry, and directed you to what they did, their link on the whole study that they did. That was 2016, 2017.
Yeah, so I have no explanation for why we can't follow the same course. It seemed relatively simple to me, just as you explained it. Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Mr. Mayor, and through you to the delegate, how would you recommend we choose a consultant?
How would I would suggest that you go to the areas that have already been through this. Halton Hills hired a consultant who worked with them in 2016. Based on the size of their neighborhood and the fact that they designated all pre-1975 homes as frozen, that consultant probably would be able to help us.
So just to clarify, you want us to use a consultant who you know will give an answer that you would like to hear?
I don't know what their consultant recommended specifically. I know that they did a freeze. I know that they changed their zoning to protect their homes from this type of development, but I didn't get into a lengthy conversation with him or read all of their documents. It's not my full-time job. I'm self-employed, so I have to spend my time earning a living.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? All in favor of receipt and refer to Councillor Gardner's motion. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for coming out. We have a motion to move Councillor Gardner's motion forward, please. Councillors Thompson and Maracas, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's a very short motion. It's to hire a consultant expert and experienced in development in mature neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, be hired. Okay. We've been going round and round and backwards and sideways, and I brought this motion forward in October. So we're soon coming up to a year. October 24th, 2017 was when I brought my motion forward to look at our zoning bylaws to see if they're in congruence with our official plan, in particular Section 8. We're just not getting anywhere. So we do have a motion from council to go to another public planning meeting. We're just going to go round and round again. So please, can we have a report from somebody who's done this before? I mean, maybe at the end of the day, we'll decide not to protect the stable neighborhoods, or maybe we'll decide to partially protect them. But let's just decide something. And the more information we have, the better. So that is my ask. Also, this council will be meeting in November, but that's not really a council meeting. The first council meeting will be the middle of December. Probably the first public planning meeting through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Muno, probably won't be till January. So it's, it's 4 months anyway that the issue will be just on hold. So I ask council, please, let's get some outside, let's get an outside voice here. The mayor said last week that, maybe it would be a good idea to get somebody impartial to come in, because we're just not getting anywhere and we need to do something for the residents.
Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. To be honest, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on this yet. There are a couple factors that I think need to be figured out. The first is going to be how much are we going to spend on this? How much can we spend on this? So I think consultants cost money. We all know that. So through you to Mr. Amuno, how much would this type of work typically cost?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, depending on the scope, but I think to retain a consultant, probably in the $20,000, $30,000 range to start. I've already started investigating the retention of a consultant to prepare the design guidelines, but I know Council Gardner's motion is for a consultant to review the work that's been done to date and provide recommendations to Council. I think that's probably a starting point, $25,000, $30,000.
We're in the middle of an election and we're asking to be spending that kind of money now. I'm not sure how appropriate that is. My second question is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno. How would we develop an RFP to select a consultant?
Mr. Ramuno?
Mr. Mayor, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We'll put out our standard RFP with respect to the services that we expect to get back with respect to the work that's been done to date. I think we've got a pretty good grasp of the comments that we've heard. And as we've heard, there have been other municipalities that have retained consultants to undertake this type of study. So I don't think that'll be a problem for us to put together an RFP to try and retain someone.
Thank you. And my last comment, and I asked of the delegate, I'm just not sure how, and I agree with Councillor Gartner, it should be an impartial consultant that we're bringing forward, and I'm just not sure how you achieve that result. Do you go after a consultant who's already worked on these types of developments, who are more inclined generally and from their mindset to put rules in place to prevent something like this, or you know, do you choose a consultant who typically is against this? So I think without a clear RFP, this process at this point in time can be determined in any capacity to be biased one way or the other. So I would feel more comfortable doing this at this stage in the game, knowing, like we've done in the past, we've had the opportunity to look at RFPs before they go out to tender, to have some reports, bring back more information around what are staff going to be looking for. And I would feel more comfortable having a report back with more information as opposed to a relatively short motion on the agenda saying, let's go out and hire a consultant. I just think from a process standpoint, that's typically what we would undertake. But the flip side to all of that is I don't think it's a bad idea to go out and get a second opinion. I'm just more concerned with how do we do that in a practical manner, in a practical fashion, to ensure that we get a high quality report at the end of the day. So that's the difficulty I'm having with it. But on the flip side, I do agree that, you know, this type of report would probably be a really good idea, but I'm just not sure how this report can be accommodated at this point in time. So regardless, I thank Councillor Gartner for bringing this forward, because I do think it is an important motion, but there are some complications with it.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Gartner, I appreciate you bringing this motion forward, and I'm excited to know that another community similar to ours has put something in place, and it sounded like it worked. It looked like they did some precautionary measures while the bylaw work was being performed. I'm actually, you know, Councillor Perry, I appreciate your thoughts for sure, but I'm comfortable with us going out to look at tendering this, because we sort of know what we're looking for. We're looking for, and I appreciate this, an external consultant that, you know, we're trying to protect our neighborhoods, and we're trying to build compatible homes that conform to the look and feel of the neighborhood and avoid the monster things that we're seeing. So for me, I think this is a great first step. $20,000, $30,000 to sort of put as a budgetary view, I think is well worth the investment if it helps us put a few solid steps forward until we, you know, what can move forward with it. So I'm in support of this, and I think we have some time at least to get the ball rolling for sure. So thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Listen, hindsight's always 20/20. As Councillor Gartner mentioned, it has taken us a long time to get here. You know, perhaps if we had brought the consultant on from the initial stages, we might have been further along in this process. I'm supportive of the motion in front of us, and I think most of council will be as well. My question is through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, we recently made changes to our procurement bylaws. Is there an opportunity to just empower staff to move forward with this process, and rather than going through that lengthy RFP process, which seems to take forever in itself, for you just to use your expertise and reach out to, and get the 3-quote system as opposed to going through the lengthy RFP system?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a possibility. I can certainly have a discussion with our procurement staff to try and fast track the retaining consultant sooner rather than later.
You would know better than I, but I think there's probably just a handful of companies out there that are experts in this field, and I think you'd probably know them well. And as we've all heard, it's taken a long time to get where we are, and I think we should attack it sooner rather than later. So I'd certainly be in support of having staff fast track it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank Councillor Gardner for bringing this forward. I mean, I agree. I think bringing on a consultant to do this is the proper thing to do. It is unfortunate that we didn't do it initially when we spoke about the interim control bylaw. We talked about the process that many other municipalities follow, and part of that process is to bring on a consultant, do a study, put on a freeze within an interim control bylaw, and once that study is complete, council makes a decision to move forward. And it's a shame that we didn't go exactly down that road, but as Councillor Thompson mentioned, hindsight is 20/20, and we are where we are right now. But this is a step that I think that we need to take. And as far as the bias, Councillor Perry, I understand your concerns, but at the end of the day, all of us around here have stated that we want to protect our stable neighborhoods. So in essence, we would be looking for someone that is going to inform us on the best way to protect our stable neighborhoods. I don't know why we want to get someone that's going to tell us how to not protect our stable neighborhoods. So I'm all for moving forward with this. Just through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, the interim control bylaw ends in January, is that correct?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. January 21st, I believe, the first year.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, so come that time, we can extend it for another year if we'd like. And if we do extend it, can we extend it and put it in a stronger provision to freeze all development in those 3 areas?
Sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Council can extend it for a second year, but the intent of the bylaw, my understanding, and I can confirm with legal, is you can't change the intent of the bylaw under the Planning Act. So it have to read the same as it currently does, but you can certainly extend it for that second year.
Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, I'm just curious because I thought previously we said that we could look at changing the provisions within the interim control bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I've had some discussions with legal about that, and based on the way the Planning Act is worded, once you pass a bylaw for a specific area, this would be, if we change the bylaw, it would deem to be a new bylaw. And I think the Planning Act speaks against that. But again, I can have a discussion with legal and report back to staff on that. But again, just for council's information, I think we would need direction from council prior to that January deadline to extend it for that second year period.
Councillor.
Thank you. And I guess if we are going to be moving forward with the consultant, then we will definitely be looking to extend it. So. I look forward to getting a consultant on board with this.
Councillor Abel, please.
Thank you. While we're talking about the control interim bylaw, through you, Mr. Mayor, the control was in effect to not allow variances on to the building. So if they met the current within the threshold for building homes, it's still allowed for what is termed as a monster home, like these bigger homes on the lots that are residents that come forward. So the interim control bylaw does protect against variances to that, but still doesn't manage the concerns that the residents have brought up.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, through you, ask Councillor Gardner, when did we first start this? I know you said it at the beginning of your recital.
Councillor Gardner?
October 24th.
2017.
It was passed by council October 24th, 2017.
And the idea from the very beginning was to move this quickly so we would have something for our residents before the end of this term. And so now we're going to be, it'll be up to the new council to deal with this. I mean, even if we fast track to council, it will be still a work in progress. And the concerns that the residents have brought up, and I think our delegate brought that forward, will not have been addressed in that time. So I consider, I really feel for the residents in that we should have seen that through. And I do believe in the stable neighborhoods and what the residents have brought forward. So I share their concerns.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And certainly, I think, at least from my perspective, I think that all of council is concerned with this issue, and we certainly hear the residents' concerns. From the beginning, myself, it's always been about what are we going to do? What are the specifics? And how will that address the problem? The challenge I have is that going through this whole process, we've thrown around pretty nebulous terms like monster homes and stable neighborhoods without really defining what those are. And I find it hard to protect against something if you don't have a clear definition of what something is. And so I think that I'm happy to move forward with a consultant who's going to, and an expert who's going to look at this and perhaps provide some clarity to council. The process that has brought us here was that there were recommendations from staff to address the problem, but with no real understanding of how that would impact the situation on the ground. For example, I think one of the recommendations was a 9-meter height restriction and reducing lot coverages. But, again, if you have a large lot, say 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 square feet, and you move the lot coverage from 35% to 30%, you still are allowing, or potentially allowing through the zoning, a house that could be 6,000 square feet. And so there's other issues that could be at play that I think a consultant or an expert would be wise to look at, which is perhaps, the zoning calls for minimum square footage for homes in certain zones, but there's no maximum. So, for example, if you impose height restrictions and lot coverage minimalizations in terms of percentages, the bigger properties end up having really no impact at all. And the smaller properties that would really like to expand, say, a modest home, a home of about 2,000 square feet or 2,500 square feet, and they kind of get squeezed out if you lower the lot coverages in an arbitrary way. So there's definitely things that we can look at as a town, and certainly the next council will have to look at them now to address this issue. My issue with what's come before us in the past is that I don't think it addressed the problem that the residents have brought forward. And certainly, like a lot of issues at Town Hall, they can take a while, and sometimes that's just part of the process. I think we could have moved faster on this, but I think sometimes it is part of the process that it gets bogged down a little bit. While the other members of council were speaking, I was furiously looking through my my phone here to find the Halton Hills recommendations. I think it's interesting that the delegate mentioned the Halton Hills example. Reading what the recommendations and ultimately what was imposed by the council in terms of changes, the lot coverages for 1 and 1.5 story buildings in their low density residential 1 and low density residential 2 zones is 40% lot coverage. This is coming out of the recommendations from their mature neighborhoods study. For 35% for 2 and 2.5 story buildings in LDR1 and LDR12. Their building height comes down to, for 2.5 story buildings, comes down to 10 meters from 11. Well, our bylaws are already at 10. So again, I think, Halton Hills has definitely moved on this. They studied this at length, and they've actually brought their bylaws more in sync to where ours are now. And yet they've been kind of used as an example of how to address the issue. So I think it's really important that we really clarify what the issue is. And obviously we know that there's incompatible development going on in terms of size in these neighborhoods. And I think this is probably a better step in the right direction to really get that information, get that clarity, and then give the next council the ability to look at real options and real solutions for the problem, and not, again, I know it was well-meaning, the process up to this point, but I think if we had implemented those changes, you would still see people coming into the council with issues with the size of homes. Now, they'd be smaller, but I still believe that people would call them monster homes. So I think we really need to look at this in a more in-depth way, and I hope that it can be dealt with quickly, but I also hope that it can be dealt with judiciously by the next council, so that we don't move too quickly, and of course we want to respect people's property rights as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know the exact difference between an RFQ, a request for quote, or a request for proposal, but I think our CAO can handle this and also has authorization to spend some money to hire a consultant and ensure that the process is fulsome and somebody experienced in these issues can be hired. Has what I said correct? Thank you. I'd just like to remind Council that the reason this came forward wasn't only the residents, but we have an official plan that is very protective of older neighborhoods. And an official plan is how a town is or city is to develop. So our official plan, our planning policy, says that we need to be protective of older neighborhoods. And we all know that what's going on in the older neighborhoods at the lot coverage and the height is not protective of them. So I don't know what Halton Hills has. I don't know what their parameters were. I don't know what their neighborhoods are like. But we know what our official plan says, and it says we have to protect our older neighborhoods, and that's not happening under our current zoning bylaws. So that is what the consultant needs to look at. How can we make our zoning bylaws congruent with our official plan?
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. I too support the motion. As I said last week, the benefit of a consultant is that they bring the professional objectivity to the discussion. Not preconceived ideas, but professional objectivity. So I will support the motion. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind everyone that during that public planning meeting that we actually had some recommendations in front of us to possibly look at reducing height, reducing lot coverage, and we were looking at a clause that said that the comments presented at the public planning meeting be addressed by Planning and Development Services in a comprehensive report with a proposed draft zoning bylaw amendment at a future general committee meeting. That failed. I voted in favor. I don't remember how everyone voted. I voted in favor. We could have been one step closer. So I just want to remind everyone that we could have been that one step closer to making changes to the zoning. Unfortunately, it did not pass that night.
Third time, Councillor Gartner. Last word's yours.
Thank you, and thanks to Councillor Maracas for remembering that. And I couldn't vote for that motion because that motion was talking about taking all of the comments at that one meeting and bringing it forward to our general committee meeting. And frankly, that is not fair. The residents have been here many times and made many comments, and all of the comments needed to be included. So what it said in that motion to go to general committee would not have represented a true picture of what the residents have said to us as a council.
Councillor Tom, second time, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I also want to just mention that those measures that were put forward did nothing to regulate square footage and the size of the homes. I mean, obviously, when you reduce lot coverage and you reduce height, it does something to limit the height, obviously, and the size. It does limit square footage in a way, but in some of those properties, on some of those examples of the homes that the residents have brought forward as ones that they are using as examples of monster homes, the homes would, under the same regulations that were put forward and ultimately failed, those homes would be relatively the same size. I mean, almost indistinguishable. I mean, they'd be a little less big, a little less tall, and they'd be a little smaller in terms of square footage. But again, a 7,000 square foot home to a 6,000 square foot home, one's a monster home and one isn't. I mean, I just don't think that holds any water. I think the way we move forward with this is to look at all the tools, and that, unfortunately for me, and the reason I voted against it was I don't think that addressed the issues at hand. I think that a consultant will look at all the relevant factors and all the possible initiatives and items that can be put forward as ways to stem this tide. But for me, I just don't think that those recommendations did that. So I didn't vote just to delay the process. I just voted because I didn't believe that they were going to really accomplish what we were setting out to accomplish, or at least in a way that I thought was going to be, the way forward in a responsible way. So anyhow, I just wanted to make that clear. The second thing too, just going back to Halton Hills again, I know we've used that as an example tonight. I believe that they also conducted this study as a part of their comprehensive zoning bylaw review. It's not like it came out of the blue. I think they had their comprehensive zoning bylaw review. They certainly had inputs from their constituents, and they worked it into that. We had our comprehensive zoning bylaw review last June, and obviously this issue came up a little bit later at the council table. So I think, we could have probably looked at it then. I think we probably should have in order to move this along this term. So I reiterate that I hope the next council can move this issue forward and move it forward in a way that respects all the residents in all these neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tom, Councillor Abel.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. If you just Google, you can see there's many municipalities, and Ancaster and Hamilton are doing the same thing. They're battling with monster homes. But there are people that do build their dream homes and they conform with the neighborhood, and then there's others that are opposing. And if you just look at the difference and ask our planning staff to put the language in place that will guarantee that that's what we want, I think that's really as simple as it gets. So I will be in favor of the consultation.
Seeing no more speakers, calling the vote, please, using your tablets. That passes 7-1. Thank you, Council. We will go back to our regular agenda. Thank you. So, Council, we will go back to consent agenda from the GC meeting. There are 5 items on there. Would anybody like one of those pulled for discussion or have any comments? Councillor Abel?
I want to ask a question about the Heritage Advisory Committee on their memorandum about tree application.
Can we move that to the regular agenda then, please?
It's just a question.
Okay. Oh, right. I'm sorry. We're just doing C1 through C5, Councillor. The Heritage is down in the regular.
I'll do it next.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. In that case, may I have a motion, please, for consent agenda? Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Humphrey, second. Using your tablets, please. And that passes. We'll move to item S1, the GC report. Councillor Abel.
Thank you. So it was S1A1, item 3, memorandum for the tree removal permit application. If I could just ask, is that because the tree was dead, or the reason that the removal of the tree was approved by the HAC, the Heritage Advisory Committee? I'm just looking at the minutes. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I asked someone that's on the committee.
I would go to staff at this point. Is that Mr. Ramuno or? Please.
My question is there a reason why it's being removed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the request was that it was in competition with another tree within the side yard, and there was concerns about it leaning towards the home. And I can't remember, there was a spruce tree and I can't remember, a maple. Yeah, so the recommendation did come back, and the Heritage Committee considered it and approved removal of one of the trees that was leaning over the property.
And the reason is because it's in the
Northeast
East
District.
Heritage District,
Correct.
and they're not allowed to remove any trees there unless they ask for permission. Thank you very much. It's just a shame because the elm is so rare. But American elm is a little different than the other elm. Okay, so thank you.
I'd like to move R5 to the regular agenda. That's the 22 Church Street School. We did have a letter today from the Cultural Center Board. Any other items? This is Councilor Maracas.
I think I'm sure. I just got a question on R4.
R4?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Serio. Mr. Serio, just for clarification, we can let everyone understand that what we were doing and approving is for a bylaw to come back to council for approval. We're not actually approving an actual bylaw. Is that correct?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mayor Jha, yes, that is correct. There is not a bylaw that's being enacted by council tonight. If the whole purpose was for the report to be received and for the bylaw to then be prepared in accordance with what the report said, and then we would bring the bylaw back at a future council meeting for enactment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Councilor Thompson.
I would just ask that R6 be pulled just for the purpose of a recorded vote.
Very good, sir. Any other items? I'm sorry, Councilor Perry.
R4, please.
R4? Okay. R4A and B?
If we can only do, to save time, I think I'll just go with B.
Okay. Councilor Marcus?
Okay, at R8 for a recorded vote.
Thank you. Any other comments? In that case, may I have a motion, please, to accept the other items under S1, not requiring a separate discussion, which is R4B, R5, R6, and R8. Councillor Tom, thank you. Councillor Perry, seconding. Using our tablets. We're good. So we will start then with item R4B. Councillor Perry. Okay, thank you. Someone put that on the floor, please. Councillor Marcus, thank you. Second, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Perry.
Double-clicked. Thank you. Sorry about that. Who can I ask questions about the enforcement of any proposed bylaw that we move forward on?
Unfortunately, Ms. Van Leeuwen had a family emergency and is not able to be here tonight. I don't know if you could possibly answer that, Mr. Nader-Rosny, or Mr. Serio. Mr. Serio will try.
Mr. Ramuno's chimed in that he can as well, perhaps. So just want to make sure everybody's covered off. So my issue with a bylaw on pool water discharge is that it's probably one of the most difficult bylaws to enforce. Could I get a yes or no from a staff member on that, or maybe a consensus amongst all staff members? Or
I'll go to the CAO on that one.
I think, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it would be agreed that they're certainly difficult to enforce because there's can be chemistry involved, there can be lots of things involved, but we can attempt to enforce it the best we can.
Thank you. Do we have any indication what the process would be like? It's my understanding that if you catch your neighbor disposing of pool water a sample of that pool water would then have to be taken, would then have to be tested, and if it's tested and outside of the allowable chemicals, at that point, the punitive measures within the bylaw would come into effect. Can I get clarification on that?
Mr. Ramuno, I guess?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, that's correct. I mean, we're going to start with the educational program, but if there's deemed to be a violation, then we'd have to prosecute and take it to the courts to impose the fine.
Councillor?
And through you, do we have any idea how much it will cost to have these water samples tested?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't have a figure on that.
So I guess my other concern, I have one concern, which is around how practical that is, and it's my intent to be pragmatic in our application. The second side of things is how we will be treating saltwater pools differently than regular chlorinated pools. So through you, Mr. Mayor, could I get clarification that we're going to be seeking to have saltwater pools discharged through the sewer system?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so saltwater pools would not be allowed to be discharged into the storm sewer system. Only the chlorine pools would be allowed to be discharged into the storm sewer, provided that the chlorine levels have been diluted and over a number of days prior to this discharge. So the region would not support discharging saltwater pools to the storm sewer.
So, to clarify, it would be going through the sewage sewer.
That's correct.
So, is the expectation then with people who have saltwater pools to be pumping their water back into their house so it can go down a bathtub drain? Because I've got a feeling that there might be some significant levels of internal flooding if that's the case. The other impact of this, if you do have a saltwater pool, the alternative is to go in and install some kind of a drain into the sewage system. I have no idea what that cost would be, but I think that cost is probably something that's impractical to impose. So that's one big problem I have with that. The other problem is people who are on septic tanks who don't have access to a sewage system would essentially have to get, again, with saltwater pools, would have to get that water hauled away because you can't put it into the storm system. So I am 100% in favor of having an educational campaign, because I believe that, we should be encouraging appropriate environmental standards. What I'm not in favor of is going down the road of a bylaw that, one, is extremely difficult and impractical to enact. And could I get clarification again what the punitive measures are? Are anticipated to be?
I'm not sure who's best to answer.
Costs of infraction. How much will? Because I'm pretty sure the regional bylaw has a $50,000 and then $100,000 infraction. Is that the same infraction level that our residents would be facing?
I'm not sure. Mr. Serio is looking up madly in her.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. According to the report, it says it looks like it's $300 per offense, but that's in 2016. So what I think happens is that we have to ask the province through our prosecutors what the set fines would be, and then they would let us know.
So we don't have to worry about the regional fines coming into effect.
Mr. Serio?
If we're prosecuting them under our bylaw,
I just want to
would
make
say-
sure.
Yeah, I would say no. But then if the region is prosecuting them under their bylaw, then those offenses would fall under, sorry, if it's being prosecuted under the region's bylaw, then yes, they'd have to worry about the region's offenses as well.
Again, I am fully in support of an education campaign. I think the bylaws, if we're going to enforce it, and I don't know why you would put a bylaw in place that you're not looking to enforce, are just too difficult to be done and won't be done appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Abel.
Thank you. I think that when we're discharging water from pools, we do it to backwash, to cleaning the filter, and also to drain the level down to winterize. I don't see very often pools, as a rule, are emptied. I don't think it's good for the frame of the pool. But I thought when we talked about this in 2015, the education part was saying that you had to recommend not discharging it onto the road and into the sewers, but onto your own property, and let the water be absorbed within your own lot, which is probably for most people practical and easy and be done, you know. So I'm wondering, is that part of the educational process? I mean, they're allowed to do that? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
I will ask Ms. Mackenzie Smith.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We've already been in discussions with Christina Naggio about the education campaign. So the material that we have received is that if you're chlorinating your pool, you would dechlorinate before emptying into the storm system. For saltwater pools, you would discharge into the sanitary system or have it hauled away. Or you can empty your pool water onto the ground, considering the slope and surface of your property and the rate of which the water is discharged, just to ensure that it's not, obviously we want to prevent people draining onto their neighbor's property where it may go into somebody's basement or damage somebody else's property or damage the homeowner's property. So there are 3 different methods that are listed in the education campaign, and that includes on discharging onto your own property.
Right. So this bylaw is basically saying don't put it into the storm sewers.
Right.
And
depending
we're also
on,
part of the education. If you're going to do it on your own lot, you have to be very careful about your neighbors, because if you're flooding or destroying their lawn or whatever, you're going to have a liability issue. You're going to be responsible for it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other speakers to this item? Calling the vote then, please. Did you want those called separately, Councillor Perry? I'm sorry? Or it's just be a good point. We've already done that separately. Thank you. That carries. Thank you. R5, I actually brought it forward if someone would put that on the floor. Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Councillor Perry. Speakers. Councillor Humphreys.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I know there was lots of discussion last meeting on this, and you know, after much thought, I'd still like to move forward with a sign for the Church Street School, the Cultural Center. I feel that although I know Library Square project, and there's lots going on there, and there may be different tenants in the building, but I think this sign is to, you know, more to identify the building. Maybe not particularly all the use of the building, but that it's a cultural center, and it's a significant building in our town, just the way it stands. So for me, I would really like to move forward with this and not really have it wait. Because, you know, our project it's a huge project, and it may not necessarily have signage in that area for a few more years. I mean, I hate to think of that, but, maybe not that way, but I would like this to move forward, and perhaps that the design of the sign be one of that can, have that sort of flexibility. I'm not sure, but I'd really like to have this move forward.
Thank you. Councillor Puri.
Thank you. I would just point out that we received an email from the Executive Director of the Cultural Centre today in support of the staff recommendation as it's written in front of us. Correct? Oh, the temporary sign, okay.
Okay, don't be polling the audience for questions, Councillor Perry. If I may clarify, Ms. Haynes did send an email to council members suggesting that saying they supported the staff recommendation because they thought it was appropriate to wait until the project was complete before a final sign went in, but they would also like a temporary sign as the construction goes forward to let people know where they are, who they are, and what's going on. And that was discussions that the Cultural Center Board and staff had with our staff. And it makes sense to me that the final sign, I know we've talked about this for a while, but the final sign, wait until the project is complete, and there may be a better design that comes forward out of what is finalized at the Library Square area, but at the very least, a temporary sign makes perfect sense to me. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was just going to ask, do we need to add a clause to this motion for the temporary signage? Or is that something that staff will just take that direction from the conversation?
Yeah, I think it would probably be appropriate to add a clause.
So, okay, so if we can add a clause, I'd put that on the floor to add that we add a temporary sign.
Yeah, we could just...
or however you want to do it, Mr. Chair.
Do it as a friendly amendment.
That's fine.
I think. The mover and seconder. Councillor Humphreys, you're okay with that? Councillor Perry? I'm sorry?
That would be good too.
I'm sorry, I have no idea what that price would be.
Through you,
Cost
Mr.
effective.
I was going to say, do I still have the floor? I was going to say through you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. McDougall, maybe she could answer as far as some type of pricing.
Have you got something in mind, Ms. McDougall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, in consultation with our manager of Parks and Fleet, who actually oversees some of our property signage as it relates to identifying signs on our parks and facilities exterior. We had a brief consultation regarding an opportunity to do a temporary sign similar to a park sign that you would see, but we would make sure it is appropriately designed, not a typical park sign, but it would be designed special for this site, working with communications with the appropriate logos and identifying the facility itself as the Church Street School and identifying the two current tenants as the museum and the Aurora Cultural Center. But it would be that's the design, the costing, that including some basic lighting would be just shy of $2,000.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Just to add, though, in that email, there was it implied that through conversations with staff that temporary sign could be fit within the request of the $50,000. So it sounds like we don't know what the final sign will cost, but that there's no need to increase the limit of the $50,000, that it could accommodate both the future permanent sign as well as the temporary sign. Perhaps I can get Ms. McDougall to confirm that.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that was the intention. And speaking with our director, our acting at the moment director as well, it could come out of that capital budget project.
Perhaps Mayor Daw will introduce him at some point. I'm fine.
Nudge. Any other comments or questions on this? So as friendly amended, all in favor, please using your tablets. Thank you. We'll move to R6. Someone put that on the floor, please. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Perry, you were second that? I don't think there's any requests for speakers, just looking for a recorded vote, correct? If there are no speakers, all in favor? Using your tabs, please. That carries. Thank you very much. And before we move on to R8, I will indeed induce Clayton Perea, who is the Manager of Revenue. Is that correct, Clayton?
Correct. Manager of Revenue and Accounting.
Thank you very much. He's sitting in for Mr. Elliott, who is on vacation, I believe.
Conference.
Thank you. We'll move to R8. Someone put that on the floor for me, please. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tom? Any speakers to the item? Calling the vote. This is to refer back to... Sorry? Using your tablets, please. Passes. Thank you. That's it for the for our items. We will move to motions. Councillor Gartner's motion has been done. Councillor Abel, if I may pass the chair to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And you have a notice of motion. I'll ask for a seconder, or would you like to read it first?
Well, I don't need to read it, Mr. Chair, but I would like to just offer an amendment up front to also include the Queen's York Rangers Cadet Corps 2799.
Then I'll ask for a seconder. Councillor Tom? Comments, questions? Councillor Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Daw, for bringing this forward. I think it's great. I think it was really phenomenal to see the cadets here earlier today. I could be mistaken, but I think we have one more cadet group in Aurora, and that's with the 48th Highlanders, which is associated with St. Andrews College. Now, this is great. I think, they were very excited to have the freedom of the city. Has the 48th Highlanders cadets, have they ever been afforded the same sort of scenario? And if not, maybe not in this motion, but in the future, maybe someone could reach out and see if they'd be interested in something similar. Just had a thought. I could be even, there could be even more groups. I'm pretty sure that that's the 3rd Cadet Corps group in Aurora, so just had a thought.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Mayor Daw?
The St. Andrews Cadet Corps has been granted the freedom of the town, as have the Queen's York Rangers, the actual corps. And as a matter of fact, it's up on the back wall there. So this would be the 3rd and the 4th group. No, that's a good thought. Thank you. I should have mentioned that in the intro.
Great.
My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you. When the delegation spoke earlier, I thought they had indicated that they were looking to do the parade on September 19th as opposed to what's before us, and or they might need some flexibility. I'm certainly supportive of the motion, so I don't know whether or not that date needs to be altered or just some flexibility in that, or whether we need to pass it with a firm and final date. I'll look to either Mayor Daw or the clerk.
I would think through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Thompson, that we would be flexible on the date. It's going to work with what their schedule is.
And I'm fine. I just, in terms of wording, whether we want to say the parade on Saturday, October 19th, or thereabouts,
yeah.
Just add some flexibility. I'm fine with that as well.
Give or take. Come see, come saw.
Yeah, whatever. Just.
Okay, we'll call a vote. Mr. Clerk, did you want to respond to that?
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, I agree with what the mayor said. We'll certainly reach out and make sure we have the right date, and that'll be administrative change. It's the clear intent of council is to move forward.
I'll give you the chair back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, sir. And that passes. There is no regional report. New business, if I may start with Councillor Perry. Nothing, sir? Thank you. Councillor Tom. New business.
Just wanted to get a staff update. I know we got an email from staff in between last week's meeting and this about the status of the Yonge Street heritage designations, and just an update for both council and for members of the public. And it was also featured prominently in the newspaper as well, but perhaps if Marco could give us a bit of a summary on what has happened up to now and the process moving forward.
Marco? Mr. Mayor?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, we directed staff to issue notices to designate those 15 individual properties. That occurred. There was a window to appeal within the month of September. That closed the end of September. We did receive appeals to those notices to designate on all 15 properties. So the next steps are for staff to now prepare the record of those individual properties, and we basically have it prepared. We'll send that off to the Conservation Review Board. Their process is they'll review the information, then they will report back to council with their recommendation. It's not binding. It'll be up to council to determine how to proceed. We don't expect a decision from the review board, or a hearing probably later on 2018 or early 2019. When we are made aware of a review board hearing, we are required to notify our residents within 10 days of that hearing, and we'll do so when we get a hearing date. But again, we don't think that'll happen at the earliest the end of this year. At that point, the review board recommendation will be provided to council through a report from my office, and council then can proceed with the next step of actually directing staff to designate those properties as heritage, and we would then proceed to register those on title. Staff, we're already working on those actual bylaws, so we'll be prepared once that hearing date has been set.
Thank you, Mayor Don. Thank you, Mr. Muno. So the process is unfolding, and certainly it will be the next council who will have the final say on this. And so, as I certainly won't be on that council, I would be urging those members that are running for re-election and those members of the public who are looking to run for council as well, that we should protect the heritage, especially on our main street. And I think those buildings are critically important for the town moving forward. And I think they definitely fall in the criteria of Part 4 designation. So I hope that when the recommendation comes back from the Heritage or the Conservation Review Board, that the next council will move swiftly forward on ensuring the protection of those buildings. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson.
Just a couple questions. One being, a while back I noticed that the Aurora sign on Leslie Street still said that our population is 41,000. I still see it's still 41,000, so through to Mr. Nadarozny. Any feedback from whoever's in charge of that about when that's going to be updated? I think we passed that mark a long time ago.
Mr. Ramuno?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We didn't put those calls into the to the region, and those signs are outdated. So they're aware that we want them updated. They were just waiting for to finalize the latest census information, and they did assure us that they would update those signs. We'll follow up again tomorrow.
I appreciate that, because I know the remainder of our signs have been updated to the 60,000 figure. We're a little off on that one. Second one, really, at the JCC meeting, I brought up the need to put up information with regards to the new fire station at Isaacson and Earl Stewart. Any sense of when that sign is going to go up to notify residents?
Mr. Nadarozny.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the final design was advanced by the architects, and the fire chief asked for a change to that. So it's imminent that the sign can go up. They're just going back and forth on the design details, but we've asked them to make sure it's up before the end of the month.
I appreciate that. I really do urge that the sign go up so that the residents in the area, who don't watch council on a regular basis know what's happening.
Councillor Maracas, new business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just kind of want to echo some of Councillor Tom's comments in regards to the designation of those 15 properties along Yonge Street. I encourage anyone running to make sure that they understand that they will have the final say, not the Conservation Review Board, and it will be up to the next council to protect those properties in our downtown core. And I would also encourage any resident to make sure that during this upcoming election that they ask every candidate where they stand on protecting those 15 properties. Second item, through Mr. Chair to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, as this is our last meeting for election, I once again have to ask about the Highland Gate development. Obviously, I always ask usually. There are some issues with some of the dump trucks traveling along the residential streets, and there's concerns that they're not supposed to be traveling along the residential streets of Cranberry Lane and Timber Lane Trail. They should be just accessing those access points. And so I'm just wondering if we can put that call in and make sure that they're adhering to our policies in that construction mitigation plan.
Mr. Ramuno?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. I'm not aware of any traffic going through the neighborhoods. I know they are working on a number of homes that they've received building permits for, but we'll follow up. And again, they've been very good to deal with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno.
Public service announcements?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
I just wish Councillor Kim a speedy recovery. Many people may not know that he's been hospitalized with some kind of bug or infection, and certainly we wish him back speedy health.
Indeed. Councillor Humphries?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two announcements. One is our Aurora Special Ducks swim athletes were crowned national champions at the 2018 Special Olympics Summer National Games in Nova Scotia in their own Gary Freeman and Nathan Kim. So I think that was wonderful for them to be very successful at the games. And as well, just a reminder that the Aurora Farmers Market every Saturday from 8 to 1 at our town park. But on the 27th of September, the 29th, apologies, we have a special day. It's Culture Day at the park and at the Farmers Market, and there'll be all kinds of things added that day, including 5 market chefs are going to prepare and sample various soups for our customers. You'll be able to watch demonstrations using local produce at the market, and there'll also be an initiative called Stuff the Truck, full of food for the Aurora Pantry. So come with donations for the Aurora Food Pantry that day, and we'll have a wonderful time there as normal. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tom. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to wish everyone around the council table, except for Councillor Tom, good luck in the in the upcoming elections. I can tell you guys honestly, I don't envy you. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perry. Just a couple. The Youth Volunteer Fair is this Thursday, September the 20th, from 4 to 7. It's at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, aurora.ca/youth events. Curbside giveaway, Saturday, September the 29th, and Saturday, that should be Sunday, Saturday, October the 20th, I apologize, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's kind of a town-wide street sale. The Colors of Fall concert. Our last concert in Town Park is Thursday, October the 4th, and that is from 6 to 8, not 7 to 9, but 6 to 8 because it gets dark earlier. And it's a tribute to the Traveling Wilburys. Playspeak.com/Aurora Parks and Trails, looking for some input on our parks and our trails. And we'll feed all that information to Ms. McDougall, and she's going to create wonderful things out of it, right? Sarah. Sorry, Sarah. Club Aurora celebrates Active Aging Week, September 23rd to 29th. And to Councillor Perry's point, for everybody out canvassing, we are indeed actively aging. Which is why Councillor Perry does not envy us. Walking. Nope. And our e-waste event is Saturday, October the 13th at the Joint Operations Center, and that's from 10 to 2. Old electronics, and it's still amazing to me the amount of electronics that comes in, especially the old TVs. I don't know where they come from, but they do. So that is that, Council. That is our... You always have to be last, don't you?
It's not that I have to, it came to my mind. I just wanted to, I thought you might bring it up, Mr. Chair, but I just wanted to say that this past weekend was the Hoedown, as everyone knows, and it was an extraordinary event. They raised $538,000, just over $538,000 for 20 charities within York Region. And I just wanted to officially thank Frank Stronach, Don Walker, and Magna for having the vision to not only create an event that brings so much money for our charities and helps them out, but creating an event that unites the community together. And so I just think it was a wonderful event that is unique to Aurora, and I think we're very proud and glad to have them here in Aurora.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. That's on top of the $500,000 they raised a week before at the To Serve and Savor event, which was really quite a fine event. We have a very generous community. There's no question about that. Council, this is indeed our last meeting before the upcoming election. We have one more meeting in November, so best wishes to everyone running, and keep your feet something. Yeah, good shoes. You need good shoes. Council, that is it. May I please have the bylaws? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Second, Councillor Tom? No. Okay, all right. Councillor Humphreys? There is... I'm sorry? Okay. We'll separate bylaw C. Other than that, we'll move forward all the other bylaws. All in favor? Using your tablets, please. Everything but C. Everybody's in. Those pass. Would someone please move item C separately? Councillor Perry, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Using your tablets. That passes. Thank you. Confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Tom, thank you. Second, thank you, Councillor Perry. All in favor of the confirming bylaw? Opposed? That is carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillors Humphreys and Tom, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you for coming out and visiting us.